Hey everybody, welcome back, Mr. Oakes. So we're going to begin talking about factoring polynomials, and there's a number of different ways that we can factor polynomials depending on the polynomial that we're given. There's several levels of this. The first one that we're going to talk about, and it's the most basic one, is to use GCF, or greatest common factor. Basically what that means is we're going to look for something in the terms of the polynomial to see if we can pull something out that each term has in common. It could be the number, something about the numbers that they have in common. It could be something about the variable that they have in common. It could be a combination of the two. So we're going to do a couple of different ones today, and the first couple we have are here. So we're usually going to see something that says factor completely, and that's what we want to do anyway. We want to basically separate it into its complete factors, all of it. We want to make sure that we've gotten it so that anything that's left behind in each separate parentheses or something that's the lowest we can go. There's nothing else that those terms have in common. So the first one we have here is 36 plus 27x. Now it's always good to look at these, first to look at the numbers and then to look at the variables to see, well, do the numbers have something in common? Do the variables have something in common? So it's a two-step kind of process. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my two numbers, 36 and 27. Now, I always look at the smaller of the two, and the first thing I say is, well, can the smaller of the two numbers go into the bigger of the two numbers nicely? Nicely means no decimal, no fraction. 27 can't go into 36 nicely. So then we start breaking it down. And the next largest factor, the next greatest factor of 27 is 9. So we then say, well, does 9 go nicely into 36? And yes, it does. 9 goes into, so I'm going to put 9 on the outside of parentheses. And really I should have left a little bit of space in case the variable, they had a variable in common. So 9 goes on the outside, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide each of the numbers by 9. Now I don't have to write the division there, but it's not bad to do, keep track. 36 divided by 9 is 4, plus 27 divided by 9 is 3. So then we next look at the variables. Well, 36 doesn't have a variable on it, but 27x does. Well, since the 36 doesn't have a variable on it, then it and the 27x are not going to have any variables in common. So I'm just going to bring the x down, and I'm done. This is factored completely because 9 is by itself on the outside. There's nothing it's adding or subtracting on the outside. And the only things we have here are 4 and 3x. 4 and 3 have nothing in common, and there's only the x here, so it has no other variable in common there. So now we move to the next. 4x plus 3x squared. So again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually set up my parentheses ahead of time. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the numbers 4 and 3. 4 and 3 have nothing in common except for 1. So I'm going to write 4, I'm going to put plus, and I'm going to put the 3 right after because that's it. That's as good as they're going to get. So they're going to go into parentheses because their factor, that's as small as we can get it. So then I'll look at the variables. So I have an x and I have an x squared. When I have the variables, what I'm going to look at is which one, alright, I'm going to look at this, make sure it's the same variable, x, and then I'm going to look at their exponents and say, well, which one has the smaller exponent? We have the x, we have the x squared. Remember, x has a 1. 1 is smaller than 2. So I'm going to put the x on the outside. So I'm going to divide now both of these by x. So this x cancels out, so I'm not going to have anything here. So that 4 is by itself. X squared, when I divide bases with the same exponent, I'm subtracting the exponents. So I look, I have 2 minus 1. So I'm going to still have x, and 2 minus 1 is going to remain x. So that's it. That's my answer. I can't combine these because, again, these don't have variables in common. They're not like terms. So I can't combine what's in the parentheses. It stays as 4 plus 3x. Don't add them together. You can't do that. You can't go, well, it's 7x. 7x is 7 times x. So the way to think of it is, let's put 2 in for x. 4 plus 3x. So 4 plus 3 times 2 is 6. 4 plus 6 is 10. 7x, well, if x is 2, 7 times 2 is 14. Doesn't work out. That's it. That's all I can do. This is factored completely. Anything I could have combined is already combined, and I'm done. That's my answer there. So I'm going to take it to the next step, which is we have here, now we have 35x squared plus 63x to the 4th. So again, I'm going to look, do I have a greatest common factor? I'm going to start by looking at the numbers, 35 and 63. So I'll start with the 35. Does 35 go nicely into 63? No, it doesn't. So the next thing I do is I go, well, what's the next largest factor of 35? It's 7. Does 7 go nicely into 63? Yes, it does. It goes in. It goes in 9 times. So I'm going to say I'm going to divide those two both by 7. So I'm going to put a 7, and I'm going to put it on the outside of a parentheses. Now I remember to actually leave some space. So 35 divided by 7 is 5. I'm going to leave a little bit of space in case that variable comes down. Plus 63 divided by 7 is 9. Now remember, I'm not done, so I'm not going to add those two together. I'm going to move on to the variables. I'm going to x squared, x to the 4th. So both of them have an x, so they have a variable in common. Now it's just a matter of which one has the smaller exponent. X squared. So x squared is going to go on the outside of the parentheses. So I'm going to do divided by x squared, divided by x squared. This x squared cancels out, so 5 doesn't have anything directly after it. Plus 9, again, I'm going to keep the x and subtract the exponents. 4 minus 2 gives us 2. And that's it. That's as good as I'm going to get. That is factored completely. I only have a monomial on the outside, a one-termed expression on the outside, and on the inside, I can't combine anything. So this, when it says factored completely, that's my answer. Let's go down here. Negative 18x minus 21x squared. Again, I'm going to start with the numbers. The first thing I notice is that both numbers have a negative in front of them. So first thing I'm going to say is whatever my factor is, whatever my greatest common factor is, it's going to be negative. I look again. Does 18 go into 21 nicely? No, it doesn't. So now I'm going to work my way down. The next largest factor of 18 is 9. Does 9 go into 21? No. The next largest factor is 6. Does 6 go into 21? It doesn't go in nicely. So keep working down. 3. Does 3 go into 21? Yes, it does. So I'm going to write a 3, and I'm going to put a parentheses outside of it, next to it. But again, a little bit of space. So I'm going to divide this by negative 3, and I'm going to divide that by negative 3. Negative 18 divided by negative 3, negative divided by a negative is a positive. Positive. 18 divided by 3 is 6. Leave a little bit of space. Now, I'm not going to write in the minus right away, because I'm going to look, I'm going to say, well, I have a negative divided by a negative. Negative divided by a negative is going to be a positive, so I'm going to put a plus. 21 divided by 3, 7. Leave a little bit of space, and I'm going to have my close parentheses. Always make sure you're leaving space in case you're putting a variable there. A little bit of space is not going to make it incorrect. So now I go back, I look at the variables. They each have an x, so I know that at the least I'm going to have a common factor of x. And I have to look and say, well, which one has the smaller exponent? X or x to the second? Remember, that's a 1. So that's the smaller exponent. So I'm going to divide both things by x. This x cancels out. And so I'm not going to have anything next to the 6. X squared divided by x, I'm definitely going to have an x. 2 minus 1 is 1. And that's my answer. That's factored completely. Remember, I'm only factoring. It doesn't say solve because it's not equal to anything. I can't solve unless they either give me what the variable is equal to, or they have the an equation and not just an expression. Remember, an equation means there has to be an equal sign there. No equal sign? Not an equation. The last thing. Sometimes there's more than one variable. And in this case, I didn't include any numbers just so we could see, okay, well, I'm dealing with the variables now. So I have to take each variable individually. So I could have an x, a y, a z, I have to deal with all the x's first, then all the y's, then all the z's, then if I have a's and b's, however many variables there are, I got to work with each one individually. So that's why I did 3 of these here. So the first one we have here, x to the third y squared plus, this is y to the third. So I'm going to look, I'm going to say, okay, well, let me look. First thing I'm looking at is the x. And I look, see, are there any other x's here? No, they're not. So I'm going to set up a parentheses. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put in my x to the third, since that's my only x term. Next, I'm going to look at the y's. I see that I have 2 y's. I have y to the second, I have y to the third. So I'm definitely going to put a y on the outside of my parentheses, because I'm factoring that out. Okay? But now I have to look at the exponent. So which one's smaller? The y squared or y to the third? 2 is always smaller than 3. So I'm going to put the 2 on the outside, divide both of these by y squared. These y squares cancel out, which is why I only have the x to the third there. Y to the third divided by y to the second. I'm going to put the y. 3 minus 2 is 1. So this is y to the 1. I don't need to put an exponent there. This is factored completely. The next one, x squared y to the third minus x to the fifth y to the fourth. First thing I'm going to do, I see that I have an x here and I have an x here. So I'm going to put an x on the outside of parentheses with a little bit of space in case I have to put the y there. I feel like I made the parentheses a little too close, but we'll see. So I'm definitely going to divide by x, but I have to look at the exponents. That's a 2, that's a 5. 2 is smaller, so I definitely factoring out the x squared. Divide both of them by x squared. That's going to cancel out. My second term, x to the fifth divided by x to the second, it's definitely going to be a minus x. 5 minus 2 gives me x to the third. So now I'll look and check out the y. I have a y in the first term, I have a y in the second term. So I definitely am factoring out some type of y. I look, y to the third, y to the fourth. 3 is definitely smaller. So I'm going to put a 3 over my factored out y. So my greatest common factor is x to the second, y to the third. So when I divide both things by y to the third, I notice that everything in my first term cancels out. So does that mean I put a 0? Got itchy leg right now. Does that mean I put a 0? No, it just means I divided something by itself, so this is going to become 1. Okay, because I'm dividing two things by themselves. I divided x squared y to the third by x squared y to the third. So I divided something by itself. Anything divided by itself, 1. So I go over here, I have y to the fourth, y to the third. Well, I'm still going to have some type of y left over. 4 minus 3 is 1. So I'm going to rewrite it down here. My answer is x squared y to the third times 1 minus x to the third y. And that's my answer there. One more. X, y to the fourth, plus x to the fourth, y to the fourth. So, I look, both terms have an x. So I'm going to put an x on the outside. And I look, which one has the smaller exponent? The x. So I'm going to divide both sides by x. This cancels out. A little bit of space. Alright, so that cancels out. I haven't worked with the y yet, so I gotta wait. Plus, well, x to the fourth divided by x. I'm still gonna have an x, so plus x. 4 minus 1, because remember, x has an exponent of 1. 4 minus 1 is 3. So now we move to the y's. I have a y to the fourth. I have a y to the fourth. I have the same thing in both terms, so I'm going to just take that out. Y to the fourth. And when I do that, that cancels out, that cancels out. So again, the first term, xy to the fourth divided by xy to the fourth, that's a 1. And then this one cancels out. So here I have my answer. Xy to the fourth times the quantity 1 plus x to the third. And that's how we factor a polynomial using greatest common factor. If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe. It helps because then other people can see it and get some help with math as well. As always, keep going, stay strong, keep working at your math, and you too can get better. Math is everything. Peace out.